All right, Beowulf, battle with Grendel's mother. We've already seen his superhero strength, his ability, as the epic warrior to, rip somebody's arm out of its socket. Not just another person, but, this big monster with a big claw and everything. But as we established, that doesn't necessarily mean that Grendel's defeated, dead. He disarmed him, and pun intended, but he's not dead. So what do we need to do? We need his head. And so that's where he goes off, to kind of confirm that he truly is deceased. We see some more of these epic warrior traits, the supernatural abilities. He descends into the lake, into the marsh, and he descends for hours. Hours. Some of us can barely hold our breath, 30 seconds, maybe a minute if we're lucky, maybe a little bit more if you're a big-time athlete and so on. We're prepared. But that's another one of those moments where we kind of, suspend disbelief. Like, that can't happen. Just forget about that. This is a story, a legend, and so on. Because if you couldn't suspend it at this point, by the time we get to the fire-breathing dragon, you might, hopefully you'd be able to suspend it at that point. But we have Grendel's mother. As he's going down, he's fighting off monsters. Then he fights off Grendel's mother. She bites at him, lashes at him. He uses the sword forged by giants that no man can lift. But yet he picks it up and can wield it and, does what he needs to do with it. So these elements that we've talked about, the super ability, is pretty important and pretty evident in this time period. If you look at middle of page 36, after he killed the mom, he was able to locate Grendel in this lair. The body was dead. And he said that Beowulf repaid him for those visits, found him lying dead in his corner, and then he ultimately struck off his head with a single swift blow. The body jerked for the last time, then laid still. You've seen that in movies and TV shows. Sometimes you see it after they fall from a long way and their body kind of just twitches a little bit. Just little convulsions. So he has one here as well. While this is going on down below the water, okay, up above the water, Hrothgar and some of his men have come. Beowulf's crew is hanging out. But during the fighting and after the killing and everything, the blood starts to, does it boil with blood? It like spurts blood. Surging in blood. There we go. Line 520. The wise old warriors who surrounded Hrothgar, like him, staring into the monster's lake, saw the waves surging and blood spurting through. So it's not like they've been hanging out for 2 minutes. These people have been standing there hours watching this man. Well, they can't see him, but the man went in the water and he hasn't come out in hours. He's down there fighting something. And then the water starts to spurt and ooze and stream blood out, bubbled up blood. Is that a good sign? Probably not. And Hrothgar and all his men, they leave, dejected. But what does Beowulf's crew do? They stay. Okay? Think back to what we talked about at the beginning with loyalty and allegiance. We talked about that in the introduction and stuff. And we have it here. These people, they've seen him do amazing things. Now, I'm not saying that they're not up there worried, because a lake bubbling with blood is not a good omen or a sign. But yet, they stay. They hang out. Okay? And that's their loyalty. We talked about how, warlords, they're, if they, if the warriors, outlive their warlord, they feel ashamed and all that. And there's that undying, unwavering sense of loyalty, even in looking at a lake bubbling and so on. One could even say that his descension, through the water was like he was descending into hell and fighting all of these things, and then he comes back, with a head. Everything's great. Another one of those traits, the epic warrior traits, that sheer brawn that he has is he cut off a head and he swam up. It took him hours to descend. And now who knows how long it took him to go up, and he's carrying this big head. And the head, how many people does it take to carry that head? Humans. No less than 4. And that's just a couple words, one line, but yet that shows you again how strong and amazing an individual Beowulf was, and that he was able to cut it off, carry it, swim it up there, and then he could carry it, but everybody else would. You know, it would take a whole row of people in order to transport such a thing. And so we see those traits exemplified throughout this particular time. The battle with the dragon. Go ahead and turn to that. We've jumped into the future. He's been king for 50 years. Okay, 50 years. It's been a peaceful time. Because if you were outside of that country, would you ever want to wage war against Beowulf? Probably not. Would you want to lead an army against Achilles? You know, these supernatural, immortal individuals to some degree? Probably not. This is a story about, in essence, an old king who's getting one last shot, an old hero who's getting one last shot to reclaim some glory and so on. And the story takes place where we have a slave who runs away from his master. And you imagine if you're a slave, you just run away, and 5 minutes later you're like, it's probably not a good idea. I should probably go back. But I can't go back empty-handed because he's going to really beat me now. So I need to go and give him a gift. Okay? And so in doing so, he stumbles upon this tower, finds some treasure, and steals. Okay? He didn't set out to be a thief. He set out to have his freedom. And then he set out to find something to, please don't hit me too hard. I got you this. Okay? But ultimately, that treasure belonged to a dragon. Okay? How many of you have read The Hobbit? Is that required reading? What grade?
6th grade.
Wow, 6th grade, really? Interesting. I taught the novels course here a few years ago, and we did The Hobbit. Not many people had read it, or they forgot it or something, but so we were having juniors and seniors reading that book, but 6th graders. Wow. Did you know they're making a movie of it? It's coming out in, next Christmas. They're taking the book and breaking it up into 2 movies. Okay? But the main premise, if you recall, is these dwarfs, they want their gold back. They want their mountains, the Misty Mountains, where a dragon named Smaug has taken it. And so they're getting, not Frodo, but Bilbo, because it's a prequel to The Rings. They're going to go on this journey to the mountain to hopefully slay the dragon, so that they, or at least get their gold back, because that was their stronghold. And then they have a lot of hiccups and mini journeys along the way, which is how I think they're going to break up two movies. But in that, the Smaug, you know, somebody is able to, Frodo is able to go in, steal something. Frodo, I knew I'd do that. Bilbo goes in, steals something, and leaves. The next time he goes back in to get more, Smaug, who can smell him, he goes, oh, you're back for more. Did you really enjoy whatever you took? But he knew what he took, because these things are immortal, and they are so greedy. And they know what they have, how much they have. They could tell if one coin was missing or one goblet or whatever. Okay, and so he knew exactly what was missing. He just couldn't tell what that person looked like. But I think he smelled him because the tunnel had an updraft, and so he was able to know that this person would come back again. Anyway, so the dragon is upset about this in this piece. Beowulf's dragon's upset. And so he just wreaks havoc. He goes out and kills and smashes and burns strictly for vengeance and revenge. Okay? His motivation for killing is much different from Grendel, right? Grendel was hungry. This is what he does. Okay? He's not out there with the same motivation and desire and hatred that this individual has, and that's the dragon. And so Beowulf actually feels a little bit guilty about it. Just like that warlord would feel upset if something happened to his crew, he's upset. He's like, what have I done to cause this? Well, we know he's done nothing. But yet he has to go and be the one to take care of business. If you look on page 42, he says that no one else could do what I mean to here. No man but me could hope to defeat this monster. No could try. Remember that element of boasting and so on? Can you see this as something else or in addition to boasting? Could you look at this as maybe being protective of his people? Because they haven't had war. They haven't been challenged for 50 years. No one can take care of this except me. I know that. and no one is going to try and hurt themselves. So I will go and do it. So you might be able to look at it as that way. But ultimately it is him acknowledging his skills and his abilities. We may have spoken previously about a really good athlete, a really good singer, actor. They have to be a little bit arrogant. They don't have to be a jerk. They don't have to be cocky, but they have to be trusting in their abilities. They must fully want the ball in the last moments. Okay, Tebow wants the ball in the fourth quarter and overtime. First 3 quarters, not so much. But he's working on it. These individuals need to know that they can step up and do what they need to do. And Beowulf knows that he can step up and do it. Okay, but he is going to be protective as well because he's in charge of these people now. So he fights these next couple pages. Remember how he went unarmed versus Grendel? Because Grendel doesn't use anything, I won't use anything. Well, I need something for the dragon because his flames will kill me. So he uses a shield and his sword. Now the battle's not going too well. He's hiding behind his shield and just the fire is starting to melt it. Imagine, there's an inferno and your shield's the only thing protecting, but you see it start to melt. Don't you think, oh great, my time's up. And he said, this is it. And for the line 796, right around there, it says, the flames beat at the iron shield, and for a time it held, protected Beowulf as he'd planned. Then it began to melt. And for the first time in his life, that famous prince fought with fate against him, with glory denied him. He knew it, but he raised his sword and struck at the dragon's scaly hide, and the ancient blade broke. And so he knew that, he's playing against a stacked deck. Destiny, fate, weird is against him. But yet, does he cower? Does he just move the shield and let him get burned? No, he stabs at the thing. He still fights on, but his blade breaks. So now he's really stuck. And the second half, really the most important part of this, is the presence of this other individual named Wiglaf. Wiglaf is a relative of his. He is the only one that comes to aid him. He's the only one that comes and helps. And with his help, they're able to defeat the dragon. Okay? But it's important to realize Beowulf is bitten and he dies as a result. So who's going to take over? He bestows that upon Wiglaf. Wiglaf as the new ruler. Is Wiglaf different from Beowulf? I think everybody's different from Beowulf. Wouldn't you agree? Okay? But Wiglaf, in his addressing of the rest of the people, because the whole army could have come out. No one came. Everybody was a coward. Wiglaf was the only one. But yet he doesn't go, yeah, I took the ball from him and I hit the game-winning shot. I did it. Even if he did do it, even if he helped out, he set the screen to do whatever, he denied helping out at all. I did everything I could, which was nothing. Beowulf is still the man. Beowulf did it. Is Wiglaf boastful? No. So we see a transition from that epic warrior, and we see the role of a hero, and even within one story, we see what it is to be a leader, to be a hero, evolve a little bit. It evolves from what Beowulf was, then he still retains it to some degree 50 years in the future, but then to Wiglaf, it changes. Look at the way he's drilling everybody. Page 49. These people that have sworn their allegiance to Beowulf did nothing. Beowulf has fed them, he's armed them, he's trained them, he's provided for them. The fact that you live underneath the land named, not necessarily named for Beowulf, but everybody knows that I am in charge, I've provided this safety for you for 50 years. And that's what Wiglaf says, when war came, you ran like cowards, dropped your swords as soon as the danger was real. So instead of just talking about it in the past, oh yeah, we'll be there for him, yeah. Well, when it actually came, it's not a drill anymore. They dropped their swords and ran the other way. Should Beowulf have boasted of your help, rejoiced in your royal strength? With God's good grace, he helped himself, swung his sword alone, won his own revenge. He, not I. Then look at this next line. The help I gave him was nothing, but all I was able to give. So I gave everything that I could for him, which in essence was nothing, because Beowulf still did it. But we know that Beowulf would have died without Wiglaf, right? Without Wiglaf, he would have died. But yet he's not saying, I'm the MVP, I'm the wonderful person. He goes, I'm in charge now. I'm in charge. And he goes on to say that my sword was lucky. If you watch a game, you know, so-and-so, a quarterback gets the most valuable player, or running back gets the most valuable player, they don't jump up and say, it's because I'm the best running back. They say, my offensive line. This is an award for our whole offensive line, because without those holes, I wouldn't be able to run through. When Peyton Manning goes to the Pro Bowl every year, he takes his family. You know who else he takes? His entire offensive line. Gets free family trips to Hawaii for the Pro Bowl. Because he knows without those guys, he would be on his butt more times than not. You see how the mindset is different, as opposed to, you know, there have been arrogant people who have won the MVPs. And they go on and on about how great they are. And I'm going to hold out for a bigger contract and all these things. So we see real-world applications of this stuff, but we definitely see the difference between Wiglaf and Beowulf, which is important. Good. And the last page, dealing with the funeral fire. A tower was built for Beowulf, and so that people can see it for far and wide and use it for navigation. And anytime somebody sees it, people are going to think of Beowulf. Remember, we established they don't believe in heaven and hell. That pagan society, they don't have the afterlife to look forward to. And that's their their fate, their destiny, that they are going to, the only way they can be immortal, their heaven, is to have people remember them. And so all these great things that they did must be sung about and stories told. And so some kid says, Dad, who's that tower? Beowulf. Beowulf? Who's Beowulf? Oh, let me tell you about Beowulf. There was once a dragon. Or there was once a Grendel. And then all of these other stories and myths that they could talk about. And do you see how it could go on and go on forever and so on? And so he ultimately becomes, to some degree, immortal, or he ascends into what their heaven was. The important thing is, of these particular pieces, did you find those epic warrior traits without me having to tell you? Maybe some of them, hopefully. And now that you think back, oh yeah, that makes more sense. You would do better the next time. What about the allusions, the biblical allusions? Really, any reference to the Christianity and the God Almighty's candle and all of these other things, Cain and Abel and all that stuff, they expect you to know that. They don't necessarily expect you to know everything about the Bible, but you see the presence of Christianity in this piece. This is written from a Christianity standpoint. It's the Christian propaganda piece by some monk who wrote it up. But it's the pagan society. So don't forget that. During this era, it's the pagan society, and then we start to see Christianity start to come more and more and more, and then it'll stay throughout the, modern times. Okay?